6. I'm Nick Dixon here as ever with Toby Young, and this week, of course, we're going to be discussing the horrific attempt on Donald Trump's life, as well as him picking JD Vance as his vice president, and we'll do a little bit on England and Gareth Southgate resigning. So, Toby, you're in some sort of room, just to explain to the listener why the sound might not be perfect this week. You're in some sort of hotel room or something.
No, I'm actually in a Regis office in Kensington. I just had a meeting earlier. I'm now actually back in the UK, but we weren't able to both get to the studio this week. Hopefully by next week we will.
Okay, yeah. All right, so that's Toby's sound and vision explained. And very quickly, let's just say, go to basedmedia.org for the full episode. Go to nickdixon.net for all my other stuff. Actually, there's a solo episode on Trump. But so nickdixon.net for my stuff, or buymeacoffee.com/nickdixon if you want to support me. And Toby, do you want to quickly promote anything before we get going?
Yeah, we should promote our live show, which is at the Hippodrome on July the 29th. Usual story, doors open at 6:30, show starts at 7, last 2 hours, includes a Q&A. Hopefully, if we can coax Nick into doing it, it'll start with a little bit of stand-up. Always very good, always very funny. And yeah, if you want to have a drink with either of us, both of us afterwards, you can purchase a slightly more expensive ticket, which includes the show and a drink with us on in the Hippodrome's exclusive rooftop bar. That's Monday, July 29th. If you want a ticket for that, you can find one at basedmedia.org. Just click on events or Google eventbrite.co.uk, the Weekly Sceptic, and you'll find the tickets.
Yes, how could I forget our live show? I thought you were going to say, hopefully Nick will do his Jordan Peterson impression, or hopefully Nick will sing, because my guitar singing videos have been doing quite well. Be good. So there's like a whole list of requests for Nick. Now the whole show could just become Nick does a bit of stand-up, then he does some impressions, then he plays guitar and sings. Oh, no time for news. Like you, Toby's never introduced. It's just Nick showing off for an hour.
You could do like the Star Spangled Banner on your guitar.
Yes.
Or Born in the USA.
Or maybe, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And on that note, we should talk about the great President Trump, who we all love so much, and who we were so distraught to see what happened. And I'll just give you my account of it, Toby. I was on GB News on Headliners, and it broke. I just went to the loo in the break. I come back, and Steve is showing Damien, the panelist. Steve's the host, and he's showing his phone, and Trump's been shot. And I have seconds before I'm going back on air, and we didn't know if he was dead. And Damien, the panelist, kept saying, "Is he dead?" He thought he was dead, and he was freaking me out even more. Then we come back on air. I'm trying to look at Twitter. I'm seeing that he got up and said, "Fight, fight, fight." But in my mind, I still don't even know if that means he's okay, because he could have been hit in the body, and have a last sort of a bit of adrenaline to do that, which would be such a Trump thing to do, but still have internal damage. I didn't know that it was just his ear. So I'm just looking at Twitter, and people are saying like he seems to be okay, but it wasn't. But it was by no means definite, and no one was getting that information to me. So it was a horrible time, and people kept remarking on how bad I looked on the TV, how upset I looked, which I was. I felt physically sick, and we had to speak about other things. I thought it was because they didn't trust comedians to talk about it, but I've found out since it was just a sort of organizational thing. There was so much chaos going on backstage, so we ended up having to talk about like trade unions while this was happening. For some reason, I'd have much rather just given my immediate response to Trump.
It's interesting that there's no reason why comedians shouldn't respond to breaking news like that. I mean, the probably the most celebrated episode of That Was the Week That Was the episode in which they talk about the RFK assassination. It was the episode immediately following
JFK.
The JFK assassination. Yeah. It was a really good episode.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been powerful because I probably no one loves Trump more than me, possibly in the whole world, and I would have had, I think, a good reaction. But it's just not the way it fell, and we had to talk about other stuff for quite a while, for a whole section. Then we went to Mark Dole, and the show ended, and we ended it 15 minutes early or whatever. It was a horrible moment. I compared it to 9/11 in terms of, not in that ridiculous way the Democrats do with like, oh, Jan 6 is like 9/11, just in terms of the magnitude of it and the feeling of history unfolding in front of your eyes. I called it something like the lurid violence of history and the strange feeling of unreality you have when something that big happens. And that's how I felt during 9/11. You're watching these planes, but you just can't quite take it in or believe it's real. I was in Spain for that. And for this, of course, I remember because I was on live TV. It just felt that big to me and that disturbing. And to watch the footage is incredibly disturbing. You can talk about these things and, oh, maybe this will happen, and you can look at historical events where it has happened and with other attempts like the one on Reagan. But something about watching it live, it's so horrific when you think about what could have happened. It's just incredibly disturbing. What was your immediate reaction?
Well, I was on a plane uh, flying from Sydney to Perth, and the news broke while I was on board. And my initial concern, I mean, I was able to kind of check all the news feeds, check Twitter, and knew immediately that he was okay. I had missed him. He'd been injured, but he was perfectly fine. So my immediate reaction was, we need to make sure we cover this properly in the Daily Sceptic. So I was sort of trying to oversee our coverage and make sure we had some really good, proper, thorough coverage by the time we ran our first story about it, which was shortly after it happened. So that was my kind of journalistic reaction to it, just making sure we had story in the Daily Sceptic about it, and we kind of covered as many different angles as we could and tried to get as many of the facts right as we could, given that it was a fast-moving story.
Yeah, that's a very Toby reaction, the sort of journalistic machine. We expect Nick to have a more emotional reaction. Toby's actually like, let's get the journalism right. And you do have a lot of responsibility to do that. So that is a correct reaction. I mean, I later in the night, because, I'm doing the headline as I get back at 1 a.m. or something, and I couldn't sleep all night, and I'm tweeting things and checking things. And one thought I even had was the culture war is very dangerous, on a kind of maybe a selfish level, just thinking some of the stuff we talk about and the groups and the people we sort of criticize. Sometimes I think this is a dangerous game, even at any level. Obviously, you don't expect to get assassinated, but
Well,
I don't know. I started to think about the fragility of life in general and how sudden these events are. Of course, it's almost an absurd statement. Of course, they're sudden; they happen immediately. But I don't know. It just got me thinking about all that stuff. It's a dangerous business. Gone.
yeah. Well, I didn't think I didn't sort of go there, but now you've said that, I might. But I thought, as I imagine a lot of people did, that how incredibly lucky it was that he wasn't assassinated, and the kind of extraordinary kind of randomness, of the fact that he wasn't. He tilted his head at the last second, and just because of that, he wasn't killed. But I couldn't help thinking, well, what would the consequences be if he had been assassinated? American politics, incredibly febrile and polarized, and Trump supporters, understandably, very suspicious of any kind of mainstream narrative account of what had happened. Would America have actually descended into outright civil war had Trump actually been killed, particularly given the astounding negligence of the Secret Service? I mean, that's already a huge story, and I'm sure will be properly investigated. But had he been killed, the combination of him being killed, Biden becoming weaker by the day, the inevitability of Trump winning, the extraordinary incompetence of the Secret Service, I mean, it wouldn't have persuaded Trump's more zealous supporters. It wouldn't have taken much to persuade them that it was a conspiracy to assassinate Trump to prevent him winning the US presidential election. And who knows, things could have got very ugly very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, on the luck part, definitely he was turning to look at a screen with data on it about immigration, and he often cocks his head like that anyway. He has these sudden head movements, and it saved him. And many people have seen the diagram online showing where it would have hit if he hadn't have done that, which I'm not sure is like an official diagram, but you can get the idea. Yeah, absolutely shocking. And then on the other point, I haven't given much thought to that, to be honest. I don't think it would have descended into civil war because I don't really think the right are like that. I think if anything happens to the left, we know they burn down cities as standard. But I don't think the right really does that. Of course, if pushed too far, they do have a lot of guns, but I don't really think that would have happened personally. But there would have been a lot of shock and there would have been some violence. But I don't know if it had been all out civil war. But who knows? I haven't actually gone there too much in my head. But on the other part, we can definitely get into. I mean, do you want to do first the reactions to it, or you mentioned the Secret Service? We were going to do the press reactions first, the sort of some of the
Yeah,
shocking takes. I mean, that's been absolutely extraordinary. The bad takes that came in. I mean, you've got a whole list of them, I think.
I have. Yeah, I've just got a list of bad takes and terrible newspaper headlines. So if we start with the bad takes from individuals, and I've got a couple. I think you've got one too. David Baddiel suggesting on Twitter that Trump himself might have staged his own assassination attempt. So he said this wasn't, I assume, a setup to make Trump look heroic, but it has played as brilliantly for him as if it was. It's like, I mean, I think we can probably lance that particular conspiracy theory quite quickly. You know, on what planet would Trump have arranged for a deranged 20-year-old to be allowed to take a shot at him and hit him in the ear? I mean, you'd have to have an enormous amount of confidence in the marksmanship of that deranged 20-year-old to conspire with him to just shoot a bit of your ear off and nothing else. People were citing what? Yeah.
If you really want to go down that conspiracy, and I've seen all sorts of absurd. There's all sorts of montage videos of like vox pops of leftists saying it. Oh yeah, they might have staged this. I mean, it's so moronic. But I suppose if you really want to go down it, would it be fake blood rather than you get a guy to actually shoot at you? Presumably in that scenario, it's a fake bullet and fake blood. I mean, who knows?
I think a piece of his ear is definitely missing, isn't it? So
they would say not, presumably. Or would they say he sacrificed the ear for the narrative? What would they? I don't know. It doesn't stack up to the... They're not... Someone said the left aren't even good at conspiracy theories. Like, it just doesn't stack up at all, does it?
It doesn't stack up. And then there's the photograph of the kind of bullet whizzing past his head that was caught by one of the photographers. I mean...
All fake. Yeah. To be fair to Baddiel... It's so
typical, isn't it, of the left. The left, who are so quick to kind of condemn Trump supporters as conspiracy theorists, immediately go to these totally ridiculous conspiracy theories about it.
Yeah, it was absurd. If I really wanted to steel man David Baddiel, and I don't really, because I also posted that tweet and said it just showed the complete lack of humanity, which it was. There was no sort of sense of, is Trump okay? Is this bad for his family and for America and so on? It was just purely straight to, straight to sort of absurd paranoia. And as you say, if you really want to steel man the tweet, though, you could say Baddiel isn't saying it's a conspiracy. He's just saying it plays very well for him politically. But at best, that is quite a crass thing to go straight into posting at that moment.
That's true. And I suppose, to be fair to him, he does say this wasn't, I assume, ... So he's not suggesting it was. He's just saying, I assume it wasn't, ... which is a kind of a slightly kind of Weasley way of saying, was it? But
yeah.
One of the things which is...
And he deleted it, of course. But go on.
One of the things which has fueled that left-wing conspiracy theory is that Trump managed to show such extraordinary presence of mind and kind of courage under fire. But that's just who Trump is, isn't it? And even if there was a degree of political calculation, even if as he was kind of lying underneath that pile of Secret Service agents and worrying about his shoes having fallen off, I don't think you didn't need to be a political genius to think, crikey, someone shot at me and missed. If I now, rise up, pump the air with my fist and say, fight, that's going to be politically good for me. I mean, I'm not saying those thoughts didn't necessarily go through his head, but, it's perfectly credible that they might have done, much more credible than that the whole thing was a conspiracy theory, or that he's just, his instinct was to be defiant and to show that he, show the crowd and all the people watching that he hadn't been injured, that he was okay, to reassure, in part, all those people who were really upset and worried about his safety. So yeah, well, I can think of a number of reasons why it wasn't kind of that extraordinary that he responded in the way he did.
Well, I have a take on that. Yeah, and people like this guy, Tim Wise, I don't know who he is, but this is another deleted tweet. That fist pump shit after Trump was shot, he put shot in inverted commas, full-on mental lefty conspiracy, is too perfect. No way someone thinks to do that after an actual assassination attempt. It's what a MAGA script writer would write, though. This guy's got hundreds of thousands of followers. I mean, that is absolutely extraordinary. It'll never let them call the right conspiracy theorists again. This guy's got 155,000 followers, and he's coming out with stuff like that. And my take is two things on that. One, they've just never seen actual bravery and actual courage, so they don't know what that looks like. They're like, no way people respond like that. It's like, well, Trump actually did. And number two, to your point, my theory on that is some people are saying, even Alistair Campbell, I forced myself to listen to Alistair Campbell on this, was said, well, to be fair, as a political strategist, it sounds a bit crass, but that does play very well for Trump. And everyone's admitted that. To me, Trump is inseparable from the political animal. So he is that brave, and he is a fighter. So of course he gets up and says, fight, fight, fight. It also happens to be the best thing to do politically, but he's not thinking, what will working men in Iowa think of this? He just naturally is that person, and he has this symbiotic relationship with the people. And I compared it to the Billy Bush weekend, as Bannon calls it, when Trump seemed like he'd lost the election because the audio had leaked of him saying you can grab women by the bleep, and everyone said this is over for him, and he was going to do some lame piece on this to camera, sort of apologizing, and he tried to sit down and do it, and he just went, no, this is ridiculous, I can't do this, it's not me. So he scrapped it, and instead he goes, I'm going to go down and see my people, because there was a sort of throng of people below the office all shouting, and Bannon was like, I'm not sure they're your people, Donald. I think that's just a mass of people, and quite a lot of them hate you. And Trump's like, no, they're my people. And he went down, and amongst the crowd, kind of put his hand up and was like, and it was like a sort of defiant moment. And it looked as if Trump was just amongst a throng of people, unafraid to get amongst it, and that the people still loved him and didn't care about the locker room talk, so-called. And to me, this was very similar on a much bigger scale. It was, I'm going to stand up and say, fight, fight, fight. The people love that. It's the right thing to do in all senses, but it's just who Trump is. And it's who Trump is someone who instinctively grasps the right thing to do and instinctively grasps what the people want and his relationship with them. And at times it doesn't work, where he's too rude or whatever and people don't like it. But at times it's just sublime. And even Hillary Clinton said he has an animal instinct when she had to debate him, meaning when he could sense weakness of, the thing about you'd be in jail and all that kind of thing. But this was the best example of Trump just doing the perfect Trumpian thing. He says, let me get my shoes, which is like for some reason his shoes have come off. And then he says, wait, and does the fight, fight, fight. So he wants to do that and not just be ushered off. So it's bravery, it's perfect politically, but it's genuine. It's just who he is, all sort of combining perfectly.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And
was that too much for a rant?
That's good. One thing I was reminded of when people were saying it was implausible that he would have reacted in a way which served his own political interests so well had he not known about it in advance was, LBJ, when JFK was assassinated. If you read probably the most gripping section, I think, in Robert Cara's 3-volume biography, magisterial biography of Lyndon Johnson, is the passage dealing with his reaction to JFK's assassination. And he didn't put a foot wrong. He was absolutely kind of top of his game. And from the moment JFK was assassinated to the moment he was sworn in as president, he did everything exactly right. And all his kind of political experience was brought to bear on managing that crisis, and everything he did in the immediate aftermath, his gestures of kind of reconciliation with the other side and with Kennedy's people and all his enemies in the White House and beyond. It was all just, everything was just note perfect. It was a kind of a political master at the very apex of his game. So it's not, and I don't think that means he was one of the conspirators who was responsible for JFK's assassination and knew it was coming. No, he was just a naturally gifted politician, and Trump's the same.
Yeah. And another example that comes to mind is Reagan, of course, having already been shot. He's doing a speech and a balloon goes off and it sounds like a gunshot, and he just stops and goes, missed me, and it's just a brilliant moment. But if you just are that cool, that's how you respond. It's very hard for the left to understand that some people just are that cool and they just get absolutely thrown off by it. You've got more responses. Shall I just quickly give you this one?
Give me your one, yeah.
Well, there was the Baddiel one, but there was also there was also Destiny. I don't know if you've seen his, was so shocking. That guy Destiny, who just went on about, he just sort of mocked the person who was killed. He mocked Trump. It's just been on a sort of spree. I don't understand this person, why people have him on podcasts. His only ability is speaking fast and just reading out facts. he's a terrible debater, and he's just gone on a sort of spree of just insanity, and everyone has condemned it. But there was another one I've just temporarily missed. Oh, here it is, brilliant. It's from this super Tansky person who I don't understand what they are, but they're just a leftist account that seems to have a lot of engagement. And she said, the orange rapist has reportedly been shot at one of his hate rallies tonight. Oh dear, how sad. Anyway, bit nippy tonight, isn't it? So this was a sort of look how callous and disgusting I am, yay. And then, of course, it got so much blowback as you'd expect that she then said, deleted my post as I don't have the energy or capacity right now to deal with death threats from gun-toting idiots or those that willfully misinterpret my words to abuse me. But pearl clutching in defense of a rapist is effing mad behavior. Oh yeah, they're the mad ones. They're crazy. Not you that has so little empathy that you're immediately like gloating that someone almost got killed who was a centimeter away from death, and not just someone, but the president, the beloved president of 70 million people. You know, you're not the one at fault.
And it never has the kind of go-to defense for woke leftists been more transparent. The defense of, I'm not going to answer you. I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to respond because it's just too exhausting. Like you say something incredibly unpleasant and provocative and mean-spirited and often factually wrong. And the slightest bit of pushback, you immediately launch into a kind of cry-bullying routine. I'm just too exhausted to engage with someone like you.
And willfully misinterpret my words. What can you misinterpret in that? The orange rapist has been reportedly shot. Oh dear, how sad. Anyway, bit nippy. Like, you don't care. You're calling him a rapist, which he isn't, and then you're saying you don't care by saying, "Oh, let's a bit nippy tonight." What is to be misinterpreted about that? And then death threats from gun-toting idiots. Well, so hang on. You're annoyed about death threats on Twitter, but an actual bullet missing by a centimeter from killing someone—that's just lols. I mean, beyond belief. Anyway, you can't reason with that.
No. The other completely inappropriate comment that I've got is Brendan Cox's. I suppose maybe cut a bit of slack because his own wife was killed when she was a politician. But he said, yes, I feel sympathy, but Donald Trump also has some culpability in creating an environment where violence is more likely. This was actually not just his take. This was quite a common take, wasn't it? Across the kind of progressive left, that Trump is somehow complicit in the assassination attempt because he has somehow coarsened the atmosphere. He's turned politics more polarized. He uses violent rhetoric. He encouraged his supporters to march on the Capitol on January the 6th. So therefore, he has to bear some responsibility for the fact that someone tried to assassinate him. Pretty bad take.
David Frum was another example of that, a shocking example. He said the gunman and Trump, at their opposite ends of a bullet's trajectory, are nonetheless joined together as common enemies of law and democracy. So he kept trying to tie them together as if, people on both sides, kind of many sides.
It's like there's an assassination attempt on Trump, and your reaction is to double down on portraying Trump as a threat to democracy. It's like, no, terrorism is a threat to democracy. Assassinating, murdering political leaders, that's a threat to democracy. Whatever threat you think Trump might pose to democracy is just pales into insignificance compared to what's just happened. So how can you be so tone deaf as to use what's just happened to double down on your bad take that Trump poses a threat to democracy?
Yes, the threat to democracy stuff is incredibly weak. I'm just seeing if I can find someone's thread on that where they completely deconstructed it. I'll have a look for that maybe because I don't have it right in front of me. There's too much to have all in front of you. But someone completely. It's similar to the claim that Trump is literally Hitler, and it's like, okay, so what's the problem with shooting him then by your own standards? They've all said, they've all condemned it. Even Biden, everyone's which they have to condemn it and they should condemn it. But by their own standards, if we believe their own rhetoric, then why would they condemn the shooting of Hitler?
The very people who've portrayed Trump as Hitler have responded to this assassination attempt on Trump by saying, yes, but Trump has been so irresponsible in his use of language. He's coarsened the political dialogue. He's really brought this on himself by some of the inflammatory rhetoric he's used. It's like, you called him Hitler. I mean, it's just so absurd.
But isn't it even more absurd than that why wouldn't they want to kill Hitler? You know, the whole thing of would you go back in time and kill Hitler? If they actually think he's Hitler, they would want to kill him. So why are they now saying there's no excuse for violence in the country?
If they think that, the coarsening of political discourse and the use of inflammatory language actually has contributed to this atmosphere, then shouldn't they be apologizing for comparing Trump to Hitler? I personally don't think that you can blame, mid-witted progressive commentators who demonize Trump for what happened. I don't think they should lose their livelihoods. I mean, certainly they should have the Mickey ripped out of them and be ridiculed on Twitter. But I wouldn't want to cancel anyone for that kind of language. I mean, because that's a double-edged sword that could easily apply to the other side as well. So I don't have too much sympathy with culture warriors on the right demanding the scalp of David Aronovich for suggesting that Biden should murder Trump a couple of weeks ago in a taken out of context comment.
But I'm just saying, are they lying then? Or were they lying then, or are they lying now? Because if he is Hitler, they shouldn't then say, let's tamp down the violence, this was too far. It's like, you don't think he's Hitler then, let's just be honest. You don't think he's actually that bad. But if you do think he's that bad, you should want to kill him. But now you're saying we don't, and it was terrible. But if it was terrible, then you were lying then, saying that he was this terrible threat to democracy and is Hitler, etc. That's all I'm saying.
I do, yeah.
Obviously, there's no logic to that. And there's a very similar point about the threat to democracy, but I'll find that perhaps as you... I can't find it, annoyingly. So perhaps give us a few more of your
I've got a few headlines.
Responses.
There was, Sky headline, nothing justifies an assassination bid, but did Trump play a part in changing the rules of engagement? No. New York Times, suspect
that bot
killed.
is working very hard.
New York Times, suspect killed and one dead in shooting at Trump rally. So no reference to the fact that it was an assassination attempt. CNN headline, Trump speech interrupted by Secret Service. And Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally, trying to imply that he's as infirm as Biden and as prone to falling over at his rallies as Biden. And that's all that happened. No one shot at him. He just fell over. And so the Secret Service ushered him off stage. ABC News, Donald Trump escorted off stage by Secret Service during rally after loud noises ring out in crowd. No, they were gunshots. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage. This is NBC News. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after popping noises heard at his Pennsylvania rally. Yes, that's what gunfire sounds like, if you've ever heard it. USA Today, Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startled former president. Like, he was startled because he was fucking shot in the head. Sorry. Forbes, will surviving gunfire be Trump's next appeal to black voters? That was quite a bad one, wasn't it? And the author of that particular piece, that was the headline. May not have written the headline, but the headline was, will surviving gunfire be Trump's next appeal to black voters? And Sean Harper, the author of that piece, is described himself as an equity, diversity and inclusion expert. Yeah, real sensitive, empathetic human being, that guy. Denver Post, gunman dies in attack. That's got to be the worst. Like, no reference to the attempt on Trump's life, just a gunman dies in attack. And the one good one, Nick, the Times of India, Donald Trump's death.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at all those, and I tweeted many of them myself, saying how appalling they were. As a journalist, do you think there's anything at all steel-manning the opposition here, in the idea that when it's that new, all a really strict journalist can do is give the actual facts? I mean, I think that's being very generous, because you could easily say in apparent shooting or something like that. But when they say loud noises and Trump fell, are they just trying to be incredibly sort of literal, like these are the bare facts?
I think maybe that excuses some of them, that they didn't want to go beyond the bare facts. And at that stage, they didn't know that shots had actually been fired. It was an assassination attempt and so forth. But some of them left those headlines up, for far longer than they should have done when the facts began to emerge. And some of them, I think the Denver Post headline that was actually in the printed edition. So, it wasn't as if it was on their website for a few minutes when they didn't know what happened. Gunman dies in attack. That was their headline on the following day's edition.
Yeah, no, that's pretty inexcusable. The Forbes one I thought was almost bleakly hilarious. It was like the Babylon Bee. That idea that will surviving gunfire be Donald Trump's next appeal to black voters? I mean, it was completely crass. It was absurd. It was ridiculous to put it out, especially that soon. If you really want to go there are sort of funny memes now of black guys. Like there's a black stand-up comedian going, "I'm definitely voting for Trump now." He got a shot again. And there's a guy in the hood saying Trump needs protection from the hood, and there's all this sort of, there are these, the 50 Cent had said, like something like, "I know how it feels," words to that effect. Like, so there is actually, in reality, there are actually black people, just like with the mugshot, going, "Yeah, Trump, I love Trump now." And there is a sort of left-wing argument to say, if black people really are persecuted more, and if they do get shot at more, then of course they would feel like this. But it's still bizarre and crass to put it out like that, and it's shocking from Forbes to do that. Yeah. But I suppose if you really want to go there, you could make there is a sort of slightly amusing case that there is something in it.
Well, I feel duty bound to point out that Ronald Sullivan, the former professor of economics at Harvard, who lost his job as a result of this research, showed in very thorough and forensic surveys of police shootings, of fatalities resulting from police shootings, that African Americans were no more likely to die as a result of being shot by a police officer than white Americans. So there's no reason why Trump being shot at should make him a more sympathetic candidate to African Americans.
Unless you say they're shot at not by police, but in areas like Chicago with sort of general violence. But yeah, no, I mean, it is a ludicrous piece because, by the way, another thing he says in the piece, he compares it to the 1968 Olympics. After winning gold and bronze medals for their spectacular performances in the men's 200-meter race at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, American track athletes Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised gloved fists as they stood on the podium. Hopefully Trump doesn't claim that his raised fist was an homage to Smith and Carlos, two powerful black Americans. I mean, the idea that Trump's doing a black power salute. Hopefully Trump won't tie this to the 1968 Olympics. Hopefully when he went down after nearly being shot in the head, he wasn't thinking, "Do you know what? You know what I should do here? A reference to the 1968 Olympics and black power. I think that will really rally my black voter base or potential voter base." I mean, that is so beyond through the looking glass.
The truth is the white liberal commentariat in America are getting their excuses in early for why Trump is going to poll, a higher share of male African American voters than Biden, because he's a white supremacist. So they have to come up with some kind of explanation. Why would they vote for Hitler? They must have been led astray. The fist pump. He was
evoking the 1968 Olympics. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And I wish I could find that thing. But anyway, basically, I can't find it, but someone was assessing Destiny's weird meltdown. This guy, Destiny, was just an online weirdo, and saying, look, he's in a bad place. But they dismantled him on a Twitter space with his idea that it's a threat to democracy. So the idea, another hypocrisy, is this idea, there's a threat to democracy. Trump is a threat to democracy. And then you say, well, 70 million people voted for him. And then, so what are you talking about? It doesn't really make any sense. And you end up they just end up having to admit that they don't care about democracy. It doesn't stack up at all. Anyway, but I wish I could find it, but I'll find it later maybe. But if you got any more reactions, there's so many. Or we could also move on. Oh, one more I wanted to mention was the CNN, and then John Sopel did the same, which was to say that the fight, fight, fight reaction was itself inciting violence and kind of hyping up things. You've just been shot. You're missed by a whisker killing you, and your ear's been cut. Imagine that actually happening to you when all these idiots are commentating. They're not thinking about, imagine how shocking that actually is as an event to happen to a person. And then a few seconds later, he gets up, and of course his instinct, it's a survival instinct. It's like, I'm alive, let's fight. It's he's fighting for survival. He's saying other people should fight. It's a great moment. And if you're John Sobel and you CNN commentators, you're going, I think that in itself was a bit inappropriate. It's like, what is wrong with you? I mean, they're trying to rescue the political narrative because Trump obviously looks so cool. But it's like, what a shocking attempt to do that. I mean, does anyone seriously think it's like, yeah, Trump he should have been more careful in that moment of not spiking the rhetoric. I mean, are these
Yeah, it's just
people
yeah.
humans?
Oh, they're
John
just
Sokol actually said that. I mean, and the CNN commentator. I mean, I'm actually lost for words on that. Um, should we move on then to the what time is it? Okay, we've done 35 minutes. Should we move on to the sort of conspiracy or cock up, which is a sort of famous
yep.
Toby Young formulation, cock up or conspiracy, or I'm calling it deep state versus lone nutter, which is why was this even allowed to happen if you want to use that word, or why did it happen in
Well,
this sort of non-conspiracy version? How did this cock up happen? I mean, the guy puts a ladder up, he gets up on a rooftop, loads of people see him on the rooftop, and there are multiple videos of this now. And there was an initial video that was brilliant from the BBC, actually. No one knows why the BBC were doing a good interview, but it was this guy called Gary, who's a blind reporter, and he did a brilliant interview with the guy. It's actually got 1.1 million. Just my sharing of it on Twitter's got 1.1 million. And I did that to make sure it was there. It didn't get memory hold later. And this was an eyewitness account from someone saying, yeah, we saw the shooter. Everyone was pointing to him. Everyone was trying to alert authorities. They weren't doing anything. And then that guy's head got blown off, and Gary, the reporter, goes, well, be careful, we don't know who's watching this, but you think they got him? It's like, oh yeah, they got him. And so he gives this eyewitness account, and since then we've seen far more videos. We've seen incredibly middle-aged moms who look like they're out for a barbecue going, he's on the roof, like, why could the middle-aged mums see him 2 minutes ahead and the Secret Service couldn't do anything? And there's another report, a policeman went up there, the guy turned towards him with a gun, the police guy wasn't authorized to shoot him, so had to go down again just before he was shot. The other thing is, the sniper was allowed to get shots off first, then the Secret Service react and take him down. Why did they wait so long? Why didn't they spot him? Why didn't they stop him? And why did they wait for him to shoot first before shoot? He got multiple shots in.
I think there's a 3-letter rebuttal to the conspiracy theory, which is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Secret Service, which was, it's long been criticized for not doing more to protect presidents and presidential candidates, but it's recently got worse by an order of magnitude, more incompetent, as a result of prioritizing diversity hiring. It ain't what it used to be, and it was never active in the first place.
Yeah, that was certainly a big claim that this is classic. I made a slightly edgy claim on TV. There's nothing wrong with diversity hiring if you get a load of NBA players and 7-foot basketball players who are maybe black guys to do your Secret Service protection. The problem is if you get a 5'3" woman, that's the wrong kind of diversity. So
she's been the kind of poster lady for diversity, equity, and inclusion. The woman compared to Melissa McCarthy, who has trouble reholstering her gun as Trump's being kind of ushered away, and you see kind of I think, and she's sort of her image must have been reproduced millions of times since the assassination attempt. I can't help but feel a little sorry for her. Does she deserve? I mean, okay, she's the beneficiary clearly of the Secret Service's commitment to diversity, but can she really single-handedly be held responsible for that? I mean, I do feel a bit sorry for her.
Yeah, there's like memes of like a costume you can get of her saying FBI DEI hire includes badge, weapons, sunglasses, holster puzzle, rubber stamp to bypass pesky merit-based advancement. So yeah, I mean, the holster, I mean, it's no exaggeration, Toby, to say you or I could have done a better job of putting a gun in a holster. We would have nailed that part. And also we might have nailed the standing in front of a person part better as well. I mean, it couldn't have really been much worse. I mean, there's a picture of her, the same person, sort of, I think it's the same person, crouching behind the melee rather than being actually in it. And then there's another woman who's in it, but sort of exposing Trump's entire head because she's too short, it looks like, to actually cover the large man. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, does it?
One person, it was a great, I saw one meme, which was, how action women are portrayed in the movies. There was a picture of Wonder Woman kind of sprinting at full pelt, looking fantastic and athletic and kind of formidable. And then how women of action behave in real life, and then the poor old Melissa McCarthy picture. But it did seem like a stark contrast, didn't it, between the kind of Hollywood action women and how it actually goes down with something.
Yeah, it was. I think that one said feminism in reality. And here's another one: DEI another day, and it's the woman as the 007.
You shouldn't laugh. The poor woman. Imagine that.
You shouldn't laugh, but we have to because it is ridiculous. And there's not just her, but there's Kimberly Cheetle, who is the head of the Secret Service. Is that her, or female director of the civil service, and who wanted 30% more women by 2030? I mean, Toby, there are some things, and I'll get criticised for misogyny. There are some things that women just shouldn't do. One is be pundits on men's football, and the other is protect a president, and the third one is vote. But am I right? You can ignore the third one, but am I right?
Well, I think. I mean, I don't think you're right that there's no role for women to play in the Secret Service, but assigning them to a president's protection detail, particularly if they're 5'3", does seem completely batshit crazy. It just beggars belief, doesn't it? And there's a suggestion that the head of the Secret Service might herself be a diversity hire. Anna May, she hasn't actually resigned yet. Maybe by the time this goes out, she would have resigned. But I mean, some heads are going to have to roll for this colossal thing.
Yeah. Did you see also that other meme, 5'3" in an attitude? I mean, that was a double meme because you got the meme of the annoying girls in the office, 5'3" in an attitude. Have you seen that meme? That's going around. Oh, that's like a massive meme. Is these girls doing these annoying little songs in an office? And some people say, what? They're just having fun. Other people say they're annoying idiots. Take your pick. But then that meme was crossed over to this woman, 5'3" in an attitude. It's multiple meme magic. But Toby, that doesn't completely explain it. Yeah, there are these women. And by the way, this woman was working at Pepsi before this, someone pointed out here. But she was a CIA Secret Service agent before that. Newt Gingrich, I think, was it Newt Gingrich that said before that she was guarding bags of Cheetos? So there's some pretty unfair stuff. But DEI doesn't explain the whole incompetence. You're not going to get out that easy because why? Most of them were male, and obviously the snipers were male. And why did they leave the person that long? Why is the person... Here's another thing. This Crooks person, this alleged shooter, why has he had no posting on... He's never posted on social media. There's some rumor he was bullied at school a bit, but he's not posted on social media. But there's another theory that... There's another rumor that at school he was great at taking apart computers and putting them back together. Yeah, he never posted on social media. That's weird. Another weird thing that's come out is he was in a BlackRock advert, which is so perfect because they're the most one of the most cited companies by conspiracy theorists. I mean, he may as well have been like head of chemtrails at BlackRock. He was in a BlackRock advert. That's weird-ish.
May have been one weird. Of the WEF's Young Leaders of Tomorrow. Yeah.
That's what he was. He's on the website. Someone needs to check. But very seriously, why was he left? Do you think it's just pure income? I mean, I do tend to think, and honestly, I'm more fond of a conspiracy theory than you. But in this day and I initially thought, just knowing that Trump was shot, okay, this is the deep state because Tucker Carlson's predicted it, Alex Jones has predicted it, many people did. Even I had a prediction, a kind of prediction in May, my own tweet from May 31st where I said, why haven't they just assassinated Trump yet since they're obviously trying to take him out? Maybe because of social media, it's harder to, and then it seemed as though they had. And that was my initial response, that of course they have because Biden's so weak. They've tried to take Trump out with lawfare. JFK, they've done it before. I say they did it with JFK. Trump himself said he was going to release the JFK files. There's probably a few people not thrilled about that. But then I started to think, looking at the videos, okay, this does just look like a shitstorm of idiots and the world is so stupid now. And then with the diversity hires and so on, yeah, it is possible. And in the moment, you're the guy that's got to shoot the person. Maybe you do wait for him to shoot first to make sure you're not going to be sued or something like that, or is fired or whatever it is. Maybe that's the reality, that things should be slick and perfect, but in reality, they're just chaotic and weird. So I did start to lean more towards that when I saw all these videos. But other people are watching the same footage and leaning towards, well, therefore it was allowed to happen. And much in the same way that some people said about October 7th, which I never said was allowed to happen. But I think in this case, the allowed to happen argument is a lot stronger. What do you say?
I don't think it's credible that the Secret Service would have conspired to allow it to happen, but they had a kind of unspoken policy of not taking out any potential assassins at Trump rallies in the hope that someone would shoot him. I mean, for the same reason that most conspiracy theories aren't credible, which is, well, imagine the number of people you'd have to swear to secrecy and to keep that secret. If there was, it'd be bound to come out. Human beings, what they are. I think, as with all conspiracy theories, the suggestion that there was a degree of, organization behind this, that an organization like the Secret Service, a branch of the government, could be such a well-disciplined organization that could depend so much on the kind of loyalty of a kind of secret cabal within the organization that it could sort of organize an operation like this, which came so close to actually succeeding. It wildly overestimates the capacity of government agencies. And if you've had anything to do with any branch of the bureaucracy, any government agency, you know that they're just staggeringly incompetent. The classic line is that, in the cabinet office, I know for a fact from friends of mine that worked in the cabinet office that they couldn't even organize the milk rota. Like, they were always arguing about whose responsibility it was to keep the fridge replenished with milk. I mean, the idea that they could organize anything more kind of complicated than a milk rota successfully was just for the birds. Why do you think the country doesn't work? Why is everything so incredibly dysfunctional? Why can't they build, HS2? Why have we got this housing crisis? Why have they persistently failed to address any problems like failing productivity and the total dysfunction of the NHS? Because they're staggeringly incompetent. They can't organize anything. So the idea that they could organize a conspiracy that almost came off like this, and organize it so well that it wouldn't be discovered, is just, it's wildly overestimating the capacity. Imagining that, people in, public office or senior officials, that they have a far more ability than they actually do. That's my real problem with any of these sorts of conspiracy theories. But there was someone analyzed the footage of the counter sniper, the Secret Service counter sniper on the roof, who could have taken a shot at what's he called? He was called Matthew Brooks. Could have taken a shot at him, but didn't. It looks like he kind of goes down to kind of look through his scope to see what's happened when, I don't know, here's the first shot or something. And he's dazzled by the scope, and he lost the guy on his scope, and he comes out and he goes back down again, and then he shoots him in the head, by which time he's got a couple more shots on. But that seems to me, it was how you described it earlier. It was just a kind of chaos unfolding at the moment, people not rising to the occasion, stupid, unpredictable things happening, like losing the assassin in your rifle scope. That's the explanation for why it wasn't taken out sooner.
Okay. I mean, it is, Thomas Matthew Crooks, just to get it right. But yeah,
Thomas Matthew Crooks, yeah.
It is, well, you could get a nuts kid. I mean, it's not that hard. You get a nuts, weirdo kid to do it. Then you don't respond. It's not that hard to imagine. I mean, your explanation doesn't quite allow for why they allowed him up on the roof for so long and didn't respond. One explanation for that is the people were trying to contact the police, but those police had no contact with the Secret Service, such a communication issue. So they're shouting, look, this guy's on the roof, but they can't get to the actual elite people that have to deal with this. But then you've got the question of that rooftop is an obvious sightline. You sort of sweep the perimeter. This is kind of like day one stuff. So why was that obvious position not checked? Here's a thing for you that's not conspiracy, that's sort of almost seems to be factual, which is Trump's team requested, more security, and this has been rejected by Biden administration. And also RFK had it rejected, which was quite a big story. He's now been given more security, RFK, I understand. But so that's not really conspiracy. That's just like, we don't want to pay for your security, and it's a win-win for us, because if someone does do anything to you, we win, and if they don't, we just save some money. What about that?
I thought that was contested, and the Biden administration were claiming that they had increased Trump security in response to the request from the Trump campaign, and that it's nonsense that they ignored that request. Um,
Okay.
I guess
And
that'll all come out in the investigation.
did you also see the claim that making him a felon meant that they didn't have to give him that security detail? Have you also seen that
No, I
idea?
didn't see that. No,
Yeah, that's another
no,
idea that
I thought it was, I thought it was a Democratic senator or congressman had tried to introduce a bill which would have exempted the Secret Service from protecting felons who were presidential candidates, or I think political candidates more generally, but the bill was, it didn't get past first
it got
base.
delayed. It got delayed because of
Okay.
because someone intervened, so it got delayed. Yeah, so they couldn't, they didn't, that wasn't in place, but they were going for that. Is what people, that's part of the conspiracy. They were trying to get the security removed that way and then do something like this. Well, there you go. I mean, we've covered cock up versus conspiracy. People can have their own thoughts. People, there's all sorts of memes. People are calling this kid, this guy that died, Retardy Oswald. I thought it was quite an interesting line. Retardy Oswald. Do you get it? It's like Lee Harvey Oswald, but
Yeah.
you got it. I think that's in bad taste.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell from your face. I was trying to end on a lighter note, but it backfired. That is a question. Should you have sympathy for the guy that shot him? Probably not. But on that strange note, Toby, do you want to quickly get our advert in so that we make sure
Yeah.
Thor's not too upset?
Yeah, so this is a new ad from Thor. Time you danced out of your comfort zone? Meet Thor, the coach who flips terror into terrific and dad dances with no shame. Thor's moves are so legendary, he's banned at weddings for upstaging the bride. Whether you're preparing for a wedding speech, professional presentation, business pitch, keynote speech, or simply looking to enhance your leadership impact, he's worth a whirl. Seriously, Thor isn't just another coach. He's a multi-decade advocate for free expression, including dad dance rights. With multi-decade commercial client experience earned across several continents and more than a few beer-stained dance floors, Thor has helped countless people refine their message, revolutionize their confidence, and deliver powerful presentations. He combines expertise with humility and humor, with typical client feedback including working with Thor made for a very enjoyable experience, and his energy and insight helped us win our largest contract ever, and to top it all, it was tremendous fun. Now it's your turn to rock the room. Connect with Thor at linkedin.com/in/ThorHolt and book your free confidence call today at growthpresenter.com.
All right. Thank you very much to Thor for the continued support. We're going to just continue with the Trump story and do one more bit on that, and then we'll get into maybe JD Vance as well. So, Toby, there's just two more questions I have for you. One concerns the political outcome from this, and one just concerns physically what's going to happen next. Is there more danger to come? So let's do the political one first, which is a bit safer. So you mentioned to me just before we started that this could be good for Biden. I mean, my personal take is that it is good for Biden because he responded reasonably well with his address, which said, let's tamp it down. But it's way, way better for Trump. So if it's 1,000 points for Trump, it's 200 for Biden, or maybe more extreme than that. Maybe it's 10,000 points for Trump because Biden did okay, but he only did okay off the back of Trump. And many people are just saying, yeah, the election is over, which I think is too complacent. But even there's a thing from Jake Tapper that Democrat insiders are saying, yeah, we've just accepted it's over. So there's that narrative, it's over. There's another narrative of, is it over? Will Trump actually make it to the election? Are they going to do this again? Alex Jones, perhaps not your cup of tea, but he says they're going to poison Trump, so he's got to be aware of that. He also says they're going to try and assassinate Biden and blame it on a Trump supporter, which would be one of the very few ways they could one-up Trump on this. There's the only way you could trump Trump at this point is by you are assassinated or you survive even more miraculously. So that's another theory. And let's just quickly remember, Trump did have an assassination attempt against him in 2016 by a British citizen who tried to grab a policeman's gun. There was another one in 2020 from a Canadian woman who sent rice in through the post. So it's not the first one. So it could happen again. And I think there is a big danger of that. He came out, as we record, he just came out today, I suppose, in England at the RNC convention. Some people are criticizing that convention because it had some lame speakers on it, and it wasn't the best response in this great moment where he could have come out and done a cool speech or had better guests or something. But anyway, he's back, he's out there. What's going to happen next, Toby?
I think what's going to happen next is that Trump is going to win the presidential election. But to go back to what you said at the beginning, I think because everyone recognizes that this has given Trump a huge boost, what's been overlooked is that it's also, I think, probably saved Joe Biden. So in a kind of period of tumult following an assassination attempt, in which, you know, there's a yearning for calm and order, trying to defenestrate Biden in a coup would be, you know, very bad timing. I think the conspirators trying to get rid of Biden would have now reined themselves in and thought, well, you know, they don't have much time anyway. You know, this was their opportunity now, their narrow window of opportunity. And I think they've now missed it because it would just be so inappropriate to respond to an assassination attempt by effectively having a coup in the White House. So, and in addition, you know, all the people who were kind of positioning themselves to run as the Democratic candidate, whether it's George Clooney or Michelle Obama, you know.
All right, that is the end of the free podcast for this week. But don't worry, there's still loads more podcasts. If you go to basedmedia.org and sign up for just £5 a month, that's the price of a pint in London or a posh coffee with loads of soy that you don't need. So basedmedia.org for the whole podcast, and you get Peak Woke, Base Department, all these great sections, and you help us keep going, pay all our staff, keep the lights on, keep this brilliant production going at basedmedia.org, and it's just £5. Thank you very much for the support, and we'll see you there.